All right. Happy Friday. Good morning, everyone. My name is Skylar Larimore. I work for the Greater Chicago Food Depository, and I'm here today on behalf of the Illinois Commission to End Hunger. We are now recording the webinar. We are very excited that you're here with us this morning. I'm joined by my colleague Beth Kenefick of the Greater Chicago Food Depository and Roxanne Rampage from the Illinois State Board of Education. Today is the third webinar we've hosted in this series on Summer EBT. The other webinars were for neighbor serving organizations, and this webinar is for the staff of federal, state, and local elected officials, but the content of every call has been similar. I also understand that we have some elected officials who've decided to join the call personally, and it is truly an honor to have you with us. Thank you so much for taking time from your very busy schedule to absorb all of this information for the families that you serve and represent every day. All right, so for our agenda today, we'll provide a very broad overview of Summer EBT, then dive into some specifics around eligibility and common questions. We'll also provide a healthy amount of time at the end of the webinar for Q&A. So as we go through the webinar, please feel free to enter your questions into the chat for the Q&A session at the end. After this call, we'll also be sharing out today's presentation, a recording of this webinar, and all of the campaign materials that we talk about to help you with your outreach so that you can hit the ground running, providing this information to families that you serve. Summer EBT is the first new permanent federal nutrition program in nearly 50 years. So because the program is brand new to families and there's a new process to implement it, we really need your help to make sure that families know about the program. So we're really, really glad you're here with us today to gather this information. The Illinois State Board of Education and the Illinois Department of Human Services, which we are now also joined by Casey Reagan, who's going to be available for Q&A during this call. ISB and IDHS have been very hard at work engaging schools, training them on this brand new program, and providing resources to support outreach to families. But we all know it's an extremely busy time of year, the end of the year for our schools. Schools and teachers have so much going on. The more that we can all help to wrap our arms around each other and get the word out to families, the smoother this rollout will be for Illinois. So we're looking to leverage all possible channels in a campaign on summer childhood hunger. That's why we're engaging you all today, the staff of elected officials and elected officials yourselves, to get information out through constituent newsletters and your constituent services. For when folks are walking into your offices, you can provide information on Summer EBT. We're also engaging the media with earned media campaigns and social media campaigns throughout the summer. We're also engaging and training organizations. We've been providing this training, a social media toolkit and flyers to neighbor serving organizations and training staff that will work with families throughout the spring and summer on benefits access. So without further ado, let's dive right on in. A little bit about who we are. We are here representing the Illinois Commission to End Hunger, which collaborates across the public and private sector to reduce hunger in Illinois. It's comprised of representatives from state and local government, nonprofits, and the private sector. Greater Chicago Food Depository CEO Kate Mayer co-chairs the commission alongside Deputy Governor Grace Ho. And we truly collaborate with IDHS and ISB every step of the way in this work. We see Summer EBT as a huge opportunity and area of focus for the commission. All right. So let's ground a little bit in child hunger and what happens in the summertime. So when the school year ends, millions of children from households with low incomes lose access to school meals. Children consume up to 50% of their total daily calories at school. So when child hunger really increases, it skyrockets during the summer months. Students who do not get enough nutrition over the summer are much more likely to experience long-term health consequences and experience a greater summer slide in academics, returning to school 2 months behind in reading. Summer EBT is not the first nor the only summer nutrition program for children. For decades, communities across Illinois have operated the Summer Food Service Program, or SFSP. The program is great where it works, but it really has some challenges. SFSP for those of you that are not familiar, is available for any child or teen up to age 18. It's available for summer meals at no cost, requires no paperwork, signups, or eligibility confirmation. It provides meals and snacks to low-income children, and children are required to consume meals on site. Sites sometimes also provide enrichment activities. Common sites in the Chicago area include Chicago Public Schools, Chicago Park Districts, Chicago Housing Authority, public libraries, health clinics, and many more. Again, the summer food service program has some challenges. Sites do not operate in all communities. Sites do not always operate all summer long. No school buses transport kids to the site each day. So as a result, there's a very low uptake of the summer meals program. There have been policy interventions to try to improve uptake. Congress has been piloting alternatives for over a decade in other states. For example, non-congregate, which is like meal home delivery or grab and go, food package programs, or electronic benefits transfer, or EBT. Summer EBT that we are starting this year is a result of those pilots. During COVID, we saw in Illinois the huge potential for what an EBT program could bring. So during COVID, there was a natural experiment here. So PEBT, or Pandemic EBT, provided an EBT card for groceries to low-income families with school-aged children. PEBT saw a huge difference in access compared to the site-based model for summer meals. And we were able to see, because of this huge uptake, equitable access statewide, preservation of family choice and flexibility, and families were able to use their existing card at SNAP authorized retailers like grocery stores. So that gets us to why we're really excited that Congress acted to authorize and make permanent summer EBT. Similar to pandemic EBT, summer EBT will provide families with an EBT, or electronic benefits transfer card, to purchase groceries for their children for 3 summer months when the school is out. This year, in summer 2024, families will receive a one-time benefit of $120 per child for the summer. That distribution may change in future years. Summer EBT is not a replacement, it's a complement to the other summer food sites, so it gives families much more options and helps fill in the gaps in access that exist across the state. So while there's core differences in implementation, summer EBT also provides a huge potential to better support the nutrition of low-income children in Illinois. So to understand the scale of this program, here are some data points about Illinois. There's a huge potential impact here. So 1.1 million children are eligible and are projected to be eligible in Illinois. And if we're able to find and enroll all of those children, and they all receive the $120, the state will receive $137 million in federal benefits this year. Other programs like SNAP prove that when you receive benefits like this, there's a multiplier effect. Estimates are that this program would help create up to $247 million in potential economic impact throughout our communities if we receive all of those funds. So if we enroll all of those children. This is a permanent new program, so this impact will be lasting. And ISB and IDHS, who are on the call today, are working hard to implement this brand new program and realize these benefits. But we truly need your help to make sure that families know about it and how to get connected. So let's dive in and talk about who is eligible and some of the challenges in getting them connected and how you can help. With that, I'll kick it to my colleague, Beth Kenefick.
Thanks so much, Skylar. Hopefully you all think the slides we've seen so far of how wonderful this opportunity is. But there is one big change from pandemic EBT, and if you take away one thing from this webinar, it's this. Unlike pandemic EBT, not all children attending a school that serves all meals free will be eligible for summer EBT. Yes, I read off the slide, but I think it's very important. This means children at schools like CPS and others where it's sort of offered free meals for all children. In pandemic EBT, they all automatically were eligible. This time some of them will have to prove their eligibility. Community eligibility provision was first introduced in 2010 in the Child Nutrition Reauthorization to reduce administrative burden on schools operating the National School Lunch Program by allowing those schools with majority low-income students to offer all meals free without collecting school meal applications. Approximately 51% of schools in Illinois have adopted CEP. But the good news is Illinois is trying to streamline this process as much as possible and reduce the number of children who will need to apply outright. As Skylar mentioned, ISB and IDHS are currently working behind the scenes with schools to try to streamline certify as many children as possible in these schools. As noted on this slide, they're sort of taking on two different roles, and it's important to note as we're getting underway of like who to talk to about what. ISB is the one that's going to be collecting required data from all eligible schools. They'll have a data sharing agreement with IDHS to share the eligible student data with them to receive benefit issuance. And they're the ones providing technical assistance to Illinois schools about Summer EBT. On the other hand, IDHS will be the one that issues and distributes the Summer EBT benefits to all eligible students beginning later this summer. And they will eventually be the customer service to all Summer EBT families regarding access and the use of their benefits. But right now, the focus is really on the schools. There's a number of data sets that they are using that I'll just say here, and you'll understand a little bit later where these are coming from. IDHS already knows children that are receiving SNAP, TANF, income eligible Medicaid, foster care, etc. That's great. They also will know any child who's marked in the Student Information System, or SIS, as eligible for free or reduced price meals, which is under 185% of the federal poverty line, either from receiving one of those benefits or because they filled out an alternative income form. Those children are also known, which is great. And then schools will have the ability to update the records via the Student Information System or another system if they have already collected or can collect by the end of their school year income information on students, which is all great. Anyone not captured by those data systems who thinks they meet the eligibility will need to apply, and there will be an application available later. We'll come back to this slide in a little bit, but I wanted to sort of put it out here now just to show you where we are in this process. If you think about Summer EBT in sort of three phases, and there's key messages in those different phases, we're right now in the first one, the sort of April to June bucket. And that's where we were talking awareness of the program, how you apply through your school or qualifying program, updating your address if you know it's not updated, and going to a website that we'll share later for more information. We can help ISB and IDHS by building that awareness and answering some high-level questions for families so that we can help sort of streamline this process for everyone. So let's get into some of those questions. At a high level, this is who's eligible for Summer EBT. There's no citizenship requirements like other child nutrition programs. You have to be income eligible for free or reduced price meals, so 185% of the federal poverty line. And there is no age requirement if they are attending a national school lunch program, school breakfast program, participating school. We'll explain what this means in the next couple of slides. There's two main pathways to be determined eligible. The first one is through your participation in another qualifying program, or through a school that operates the National School Lunch Program. As I noted, good news is that many families won't need to apply and will be auto-enrolled, which is easier, but it's still a little tricky, so we wanted to walk through this. What do we mean by these pathways? For a qualifying program, it's mean that the child has received SNAP or TANF this school year. Summer EBT benefits will be loaded onto the link card in the food portion. Note that it must be income eligible Medicaid, so not all children on Medicaid will be eligible, or youth in care are already, or foster children. As I said in the beginning, there is some data systems that or data sets that we already have. One of which is IDHS knows all of these children. So that's great. The other pathway through a national school that operates a national school lunch program, there's a couple of ways. Your child could have filled out an application for free or reduced price school meals. Remember, this is only at schools that aren't doing the community eligibility provision, where children have to and they get determined if they're paid, reduced price, or free in terms of their meals. Your child may be in a qualifying program, and I'll explain in a second why this is sort of listed in both. Or your child and your family filled out an alternative household income form for things like fee waivers. For example, at CPS, this is called the Family Income Information Form, or FIIF. You may have noticed that we skipped over age and we talked about the overall eligibility criteria, because this is because it depends on how someone is determined that they are eligible. If you're just in a qualifying program, aka the child is not attending an NSLP school, it's private, they don't offer free and reduced meals, or they're homeschooled, then that child must meet Illinois' compulsory school age. This is how the rules were set up by the federal government and not necessarily at our state's agency's discretion. And our compulsory school age is 6 to 17. If the child is attending a national school lunch program school, then there isn't an age requirement. So there could be some children under the age of 6 or over the age of 17 that receive summer EBT because of this. So there could be a child on SNAP who's 5, but because they're attending a school, they're eligible. If they're not attending a school, then they are not eligible. In terms of some enrollment challenges, which is why we are here talking with you all, is one, what if you are enrolled in a qualifying program, but your address isn't up to date? What if you're eligible for a qualifying program, but not enrolled? Or what if you don't even know about summer EBT? The challenge is the exact step of what you need to do depends on what programs you're enrolled in and what pathway. So we've created sort of a high-level summary in this next slide. So this is our sort of first attempt at summarizing what parent and guardian actions are right now. I think right now the biggest thing is making sure your addresses are up to date. If your eligibility is determined through your school, you must be attending a school operating the National School Lunch Program. You must have an approved application on file. There's no age requirement. If you're not sure, then you will go and talk to your school. If your school serves all meals free, such as Chicago Public Schools, you would request an alternative household income application. If your school does serve meals where there's a school meal application, then and you haven't filled that out, but you think you are eligible, you could ask your school to fill out a free or reduced price meals application. Those are available to fill out anytime throughout the year. If you're through a qualifying program, there's no school requirement. You just must have sort of be up to date on that program, and your child must fall within the compulsory school age. So back to the awareness slides. As I noted in the first one, we're in this sort of April to June phase. Things are going to change as we move throughout the summer. In June, when the school year ends, sort of the steps will be a little bit different, and we're still waiting on the full details of those, but there will be an availability for families to check their eligibility status through a system through the Illinois Department of Human Services. If it determines that you have not been sort of enrolled yet or determined eligible, then there will be an application through the Illinois State Board of Education that you can fill out. They're still working on whether or not this will be online or paper. Hope is both, but more to come. And as always, you'll want to update your address and go to the website. In late summer, when people start to receive their benefits card, that's a reminder and a phase to sort of say benefits are coming. It's going to come in an unmarked envelope, or it may appear on your link card and you're sort of confused. You may start to get calls in the end of the summer saying, why was this money loaded? And that's where you all can really help and explain sort of what's happening with the family so that they're not worried to use those benefits, because the benefits will expire. And as always, there'll be a website with information up to date. This slide is something we're still sort of toying with and working on. It's a screener that we're trying to determine with our internal staff and some others if it would be useful, but it's just a way to sort of answer questions and start to direct families. So more to come, and you'll see this hopefully in our Dropbox materials. So I'm just going to pause for a moment and see if there's any questions that have come up in the Q&A box that I can answer. And then we're going to walk through some common scenarios and some other FAQs. Okay, it looks like no sort of clarifying questions right now, a couple that we will answer later. But please keep putting some questions in the Q&A box. That will be the easiest way for us to be able to answer those questions. Okay, so I ran through a number of eligibility rules, and I think it's useful to understand that there are some common scenarios based on that you're going to be faced with, and that they are all true. So the first one is just a reminder, as I said before, not all schools ask families to fill out school meal applications. So you may get someone that says, I was told to talk to my school. We don't fill out a school meal application. That's when you talk about sort of the alternative income form rather than the school meal application. And that's where they may have done it at the beginning of the year. They may have been offered it to get reductions on graduation or fees or AP classes or other kinds of things. And so that's sort of the way in which a family could demonstrate their income level to a school. The next one, which I think is fairly important because it's going to come up a lot. We've already seen it in some of our webinars. Having received pandemic EBT does not mean a child will automatically receive summer EBT. As a reminder, I said now with CEP schools, not everyone's going to be auto-enrolled. So there may be some children that were at what's called a community eligibility school, a school that serves all meals free, like CPS, whose income was actually higher than 185% of the federal poverty line. And so they will not be receiving summer EBT. It's also possible someone's income changed from when they received pandemic EBT to now. So there may be some of those differences. The next one. Similarly, receiving Medicaid does not mean a child will automatically receive summer EBT. Unfortunately, you have to remember it's income eligible Medicaid. We have a higher threshold for Medicaid than 185%, so it's only children that are on Medicaid and under that income. It is possible that a family could have some children eligible, but not all. This is where things I think could get a little confusing if they receive benefits in August and they receive the $120 for 2 of their 3 children. It's possible that that third child is in an early childhood care center and not at a national school lunch program. Or they're under the age of 6 if all the children were deemed eligible because of SNAP, but not attending a school. So there are situations where this may pop up. And lastly, some homeschool children could be Streamline certified, but not all. Sort of a similar linkage to the one above. If they're not attending a national school lunch program, they do need to be enrolled in a qualifying program and within Illinois' compulsory age. Now we're going to go through a couple of other frequently asked questions. Hopefully that this will help answer some of the ones that have popped up in the chat. The first one is, how do I know if my child's eligibility has been confirmed? As I noted, the hope is that we're trying to find as many families and make them automatically enrolled in summer EBT as possible through qualifying programs or through income data shared by their school. And then As I noted in sort of that second awareness phase in June, there will be ability to check online of whether your child's eligibility has been confirmed, and more on that later. In terms of documents, for Summer EBT itself and for school meals itself, there is no documentation of income at the time of application. If you are applying through a qualifying program like SNAP, TANF, Medicaid, that situation may be a little bit different, and we will adjust this FAQ to reflect that. Where can families use benefits? They can be redeemed at authorized retail stores for SNAP eligible items. We have a list, and that's on our website, of authorized retailers. And then there's also a list of SNAP eligible food items. I think this, as I was noted from talking with someone else, was one of the biggest learning curves of pandemic EBT for families that maybe aren't as used to using an EBT card, that there are some restrictions on what can be purchased with it at the grocery store. Can you sign up for Summer EBT if you've moved to Illinois after the school year ended? It depends. If you're enrolled in SNAP, TANF, income eligible Medicaid, and you have a school-age child, you'll automatically be enrolled. If you're not enrolled in one of these programs and you moved to Illinois after the end of the school year, you would technically contact your prior state to determine eligibility for Summer EBT in 2024. More details on this to come, but most of all, if you have a family that does reach out and asks you about this and says that they've received benefits from both states, they should not use both benefits. And we will put out more information on sort of how to handle that situation as benefits start to get dispersed. The second big thing that I hope people walk away, the first one being that not everyone will be automatically eligible. The other sort of most important item in my mind, if you are enrolled in Summer EBT, yes, you can still participate in free summer meal programs at schools, camps, other places this summer, as Skylar mentioned. How do we find other school summer meals programs? They're still sort of finalizing all the sites. I know even internally at the Greater Chicago Food Depository, we still have applications out to finalize all the sites that we sponsor. Eventually, all of that information will go to ISB. ISB will give it to USDA, and there's a lovely sort of map that gets posted online across the country. In Illinois, we have summermealsillinois.org. We'll also have that map. And then there's a number of hotlines, texting, phone, etc., that all will base their answers off of what is submitted on that map, but depending on what's the best way for a family to get that information. If you know of a school district in your area that maybe hasn't heard about this yet, or you want to make sure that you guys are all connected, as I noted, ISB has been the main technical assistance provider for schools. They have hosted 3 webinars already to date and have a couple of pieces of guidance up on their website. Anytime we have a school or a school group or an education group that has access to school and school leaders, we've been making sure that they go to this website to really understand the data sharing components. It's probably the folks that are doing work with the student information system, SIS, within the IT department, that they're ones that you really want to pull in to make sure that this is as well coordinated as possible. Some pending questions that we may be able to answer on this webinar with our lovely guest, but just sort of to flag, because there may be in the Q&A already. The exact date of when children will receive benefits is still up in the air. I should have noted that our Summer EBT plan is still pending United States Department of Agriculture approval. Last I heard a week or so ago, I think only 4 of the 35 states have had their plans officially approved, but we do think that it'll happen soon. There isn't any sort of major sticking points at this moment. In terms of final deadline to apply, that is set by the rules of the federal government. It's dependent on what's determined as our state's Illinois summer season, and I think those dates are still being finalized. In terms of the application, As I mentioned, the hope is to have something online. If not, there'll at least be a paper one. It's required to have sort of this backup plan for anyone to apply if they don't feel like they've been caught in sort of the school system. In terms of benefits being issued, it'll really depend on sort of the link cards and what the family already has. More to come on what happens if someone loses a summer EBT card. Hopefully these are all questions that will come up later once benefits are distributed. And same of like what to do if you've used up all the benefits. Do families need to save them for next summer or not? Still pending an official response on that, but we'll make sure that as that information becomes available, we have more sort of directions that that you all, our community-based organizations, et cetera, are all receiving that information. In terms of campaign, someone did mention if there are materials that will be available. We have been putting items in a Dropbox, which we will send the link to after. We've also been trying to update as quickly as we can this website, wegotyoillinois.org. But in that Dropbox, you will see posters, flyers, social media tiles, social media messages that you could use, letters to families, and almost everything has been translated into 7 languages: English, Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, Korean, Polish, and Urdu. I see Skylar has rejoined us. Anything additional you want to add, Skylar?
Yeah, I'll just note that we'll be sending out this toolkit after this webinar, so everyone participating will receive it. If you've registered for this webinar, you're also going to get a link to today's recording and the digital toolkit. So if you joined late, feel free to rewind once you get that YouTube link and then share it with folks that are in your network that you think should help get the word out with families as well. We will contact you at each of those phases that Beth mentioned with any updates to talking points or asks, but do remember that the awareness materials will still be valid and will not expire, and the website will be updated in real time so that families always have the most up-to-date information. The toolkit that we'll send out with the social media materials and the flyers will have a very detailed Q&A as well. And so as we get confirmation from the USDA on the final plan and ISB and IDHS finalize all of those last questions that Beth had shared on the slide, we will update that Q&A in real time and notify this group of participants.
Tyler, it seems like there's a couple of questions that you and I can answer before we invite Casey and Roxanne to join us. I don't know if you want to take this one. What stakeholder groups have been notified of this process? School districts, libraries, park districts, townships, et cetera?
Yeah, so as Beth had mentioned, ISB has been hosting webinars for schools and school districts, but those webinars have not had every single school district in attendance. So as Beth noted, please do reach out to school districts in your area to just confirm that they have a plan ready to go to communicate about summer EBT with their families. And if they have questions, you can always direct them back to ISB for response. We do have a broad strategy of outreach to libraries, park districts, and townships planned to send out the toolkit of information with the FAQ and the flyers. We are printing materials as we speak to send out to information all throughout Chicagoland. In terms of organizations, we did offer a broad webinar on April 8th. That was for any neighbor serving organization in Illinois. We had about 400 registrants, so a great first pass. And we do have a recording of that webinar for any organization that thinks that they can share this information out with the constituents that they serve. So we will send out, when we send a follow-up email, we'll send both the recording to this webinar and the recording to that neighbor serving organizations webinar. Again, the content is very similar. But we would really appreciate if you could also help us get the word with organizations that are based in your community. We are also doing outreach with earned media. So you may have seen that there's some in the Chicagoland area. We've already gotten some news stories in a couple of the major media outlets about summer EBT. We think that the more we can judge up the drumbeat with both media, traditional grassroots, trusted voices, we'll be able to connect as many families as possible. Do reach out when we send the follow-up materials if there's specific organizations in your community that you think we need to connect with. And together we can make sure that organizations have the information they need to serve their residents.
The only thing I will add is that the Illinois Commission to End Hunger is statewide, so we are hosting this with the hope of reaching as far as we can. The Greater Chicago Food Depository has individually been working in the Chicagoland, Cook County area with CPS, Chicago Public Library, Chicago Park Districts, and sort of the other areas within Cook County. We have sort of put out to the other food banks. There are 8 within the state, sort of hoping that they would do the same and connect with their areas. But if anyone's on this call that's not within that, please do share this with your library, your township, etc. Because I think that's those warm handoffs of sharing this information is how we can get it out to the most people.
Great,
The next
thanks,
question that we can answer, multiple languages provided for outreach. So for the materials that we've produced on behalf of the Illinois Commission to End Hunger, as I noted, there are 7 languages, English, Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, Korean, Polish, and Urdu. Those languages are primarily all in the social media graphics, the social media messages, letters to families, and FAQs. I will say that the FAQs are not updated as regular as the websites. We would just advise if anyone is doing outreach to families in other languages that they just check the wegotyouillinois.org website in case some things have changed. When there are major changes, we will go and sort of update all of the FAQs. But right now, just note that that sort of distinction is there. I'm just quickly scanning to see if there's any other ones, but it looks like we might be able to bring Casey and Roxanne on. The first one is around benefits expiring, and I know I have misstated this before, so I don't know, Casey or Roxanne, if you want to take this.
Yeah, sure. So benefits expiring, once the benefits are available to the customer, meaning actually able to use and make a purchase, the benefits will only be there for 122 days. And then we will pull back any balance. So this is really important to communicate to families because even if families are used to SNAP benefits or PDBT, those followed regular rules as far as when the benefits go away, and it was based on availability and use. So as long as you made purchases, your clock would start over. And the regular time frame is 274 days. So this summer benefit, I think their intent is to actually have this benefit used over the summer months. So they're kind of forcing everyone's hand here and saying, once you make it available, it's only available for 122 days, and then any balance will be pulled back.
Our next question, in terms of migrant children, would they be eligible if they are not enrolled in school?
So I can take that one. If they're not enrolled in school, then you're looking at streamlined eligibility through IAS, through us, through DHS. And so we have proposed in our plan and anticipate being approved that we will consider VTTC eligibility. So that is victims, trafficking, torture, and other serious crime. A lot of our new arrivals are coming in and seeking asylum, so they qualify under this program. We have a state food program, we have a VTTC cash, and there is medical as well. So if we find them in our system and they are under the income guidelines, yes, we will be able to reach them. Now, if they don't receive a benefit from us, then they're going to have to attend an NSLP school and come through the ISB side of the house.
Yeah, and just so folks know, this is rules from the federal government. They did put out those interim final rules at the end of 2023. The comment period is open, I believe, until August. And they did ask a couple of things that people can comment on. So, but that sort of distinction between qualifying program and attending a school is coming from them. Oh, sorry. Go on.
I should add, because like I think about cash and food a lot because that's a big part of my focus. But we do have non-citizen children who get Medicaid in Illinois because we have the All Kids program for non-citizen children. So those children whose incomes at or under 185% of the federal poverty level, I will find them too. And they're going to fall under our streamlined eligibility through the DHS programs. So that's going to be a bigger group than VTTC anyway.
Great, thank you, Casey. I think that was the example, was someone was asking about them being on Medicaid. Someone has their hand raised, but just so you know, we can't answer that. So if you want to, there's a Q&A is at the bottom if there's a specific question you want to answer. Otherwise, you can email us after the webinar and we can try to answer your question. There is a comment around sort of how some children could be eligible, but not all. Yes, I think that, you know, that just sort of depends on if they're attending the school or not. And again, that's coming from the USDA rules. I'll just give a moment for the person who I think had their hand raised to see if they're going to ask a question. Otherwise, you may have answered all of them. Okay, looks like that may have been an accidental hand raise. Skylar, I don't know if you want to close us out.
Yeah, we're just so grateful that you're spending the Friday morning with us. We will send out all of this information, the slides, a recording of the presentation, a recording of the past webinar for neighbor serving organizations, a toolkit that has all of the great translated materials we mentioned on the slide. The time to start getting the word out is now for families so that they're aware that this is coming. We're so grateful that we have you all as trusted messengers in community that can help us bolster the message with families that you serve. We know that there's going to be a lot of questions that come throughout the implementation of this brand new program. Please send them our way. You will have our contact information when we send it out with the webinar. And again, if you are getting specific questions from schools or school districts, be sure to put them in touch with ISB. And we look forward to making sure that we're connecting with all of the vital messengers that are in the districts that you serve. Thank you again for prioritizing this webinar on your Friday, and we'll be talking to you throughout the course of the summer with updates on the program and ways that you can continue to get the message out with families. So thank you for helping us address childhood hunger in 2024, and we'll see you in the months ahead.